The creation of the Council of Michigan Foundations is really very interesting. I think the seeds of it happened really almost when foundations were created, in the need to collaborate, the need to talk, the need to compare notes. But it was the 1969 Tax Reform Act that really put things into motion, because if you think of a tax act, nearly half, some people say 2/3 of that tax act pertain to private foundations. And there was a meeting about that time that was called by Bill Baldwin of the Kresge Foundation and such at Meadowbrook. I was not there. Ironically, my brother-in-law, Paul Johnson, was there representing the Loudoun Foundation. And they talked about the need for forming perhaps an association, but certainly telling their story better. And then it was in late 1971 that Russ Mobby, then the CEO of the Kellogg Foundation, took matters in his own hands and convened a group of people. It involved Howard Callaward from the Kalamazoo Foundation, from Kresge. It was then Ted Taylor, who was the executive VP. Fremont Area Foundation, it was Ted Johnson and Dick Bell. John Hunting from Dyer Ives and his colleague, Sophia Gorham, were part of that. Also Jim Kettler from the DeWaters Charitable Trust. And they met and decided, well, we'll have a conference, which they did. And that was in February of 1972. It was in Ann Arbor. There were probably 70, 80 people that were there. Ironically, I was there then as a trustee of the Grand Haven Area Community Foundation. It was really quite exciting. I recall sitting between Harding Mott and Stanley Kresge, who were behind this. They were interested in defending ourselves. They were interested in learning more. We were all interested in increasing philanthropy. Well, out of that meeting, in fact, I was asked to join the steering committee, then quite young, and a woman from a small foundation. We met then under the leadership of Russ Mobby and Leonard White, who was a senior VP at the Kellogg Foundation, and formed the association. Sophia Gorham was asked to be the executive secretary, which she did for 15 hours a week. And they started to build a membership base. A couple of years later, and I was on the board at that point, a couple of years later, they decided to change the name from the Conference of Michigan Foundations. Oh, I'm forgetting one key point. The second annual conference, we had Martha Griffiths, then Congresswoman Martha Griffiths, who was on House Ways and Means, come in and speak. And she absolutely tore the foundation community to shreds. You know, you're not paying out enough money, you're not telling your story, where is this going, you're just a bunch of fat cats. That's when we knew we really had to get moving. So the name was changed to the Council of Michigan Foundations a couple of years later. And our first chair was Russ Mobby, followed by Leonard White, followed by Gil Hudson. I know you have that long list of wonderful people. And about that time, Sophia indicated she was going to be moving and asked if anyone on the board was interested in becoming the executive secretary. I raised my hand. Years later, the title got changed, executive director, president, but anyway, the council was off and running. It was interesting, at the second annual conference, after Martha Griffiths spoke, Congressman Martha Griffiths, and again, ripped us to shreds, we heard the story. We knew we had a lot of good things to say. And Dick Thrun from the Strosacker Foundation in Midland, he was, I remember, 6'6", stood up and said, well, it seems to me we best get crackin'. And there was a real camaraderie. As I think perhaps that at that conference, Herb Dow was there, Randy Rieker was there, Bill White, who was Harding Mott's son-in-law, had joined the board. I mean, the list of philanthropists in the state of Michigan, and these were the people either donating the funds or family of the donors who really cared about what the mission was and to get the story straight. Well, it was interesting. We were all relatively young. It's all relative, right? But there was a real spirit of can-do. There was a spirit of, we are a strong state. At that point, I think Michigan we were third in the nation, following New York and Texas, maybe California, in the number and the size of the philanthropies. And we'd faced issues before. They wanted to face it again. We had CEOs of the companies as the years went on. Carl Gerstacker, CEO of Dow Chemical, got involved. Ted Doan. I can go right around the state and name you the major companies. The automotive companies were all involved. And it was like, we can do this.